a very deep conception about motherhood, and there's very surprising elements involved in understanding the nature of motherhood and how it works. So, of course, we mostly think of the archetype or the model of motherhood in Bhakti as being Mother Yashoda and Mother Sachi, the mother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because they're the personification of the highest forms of the embodiment of certain principles which constitute the qualities of parental love in the divine arena. So, but surprisingly, I'm going to put the question on the table. Does anybody know which incarnation of Krishna is the archetype, the sort of, maybe the essence of what is parental affection? It's called Vatsalya Prem. Which deity is the model for that?
Is it Narasimhadev?
Yep, which is very amazing because many people would not understand or realize how Narasimhadev, whose Leela has such a apparent ferocious element in it, how Narasimhadev would be the sort of archetype of parental affection. So to understand this, you have to understand what is the nature of the elements of parental affection, which is fully embodied in motherhood. So there are four things, but two things are very prominent, and that's what we're going to talk about. One is called Palan, and one is called Poshana. So Palana means the mood or the attitude or the service, which is protection. And Poshan means to nourish or to raise, essentially. But raising here means to give the essence of love in such a way that that child or person being nourished is being nourished by an unconditional love. So in Narasimha Leela, Prahlad Maharaj, of course, is not the child of Narasimhadev, right? But the original nature in God himself that reaches out to both love, nourish, and protect his devotees is the essential ingredient in parental affection. So it's not that really parents, right, especially mothers, are the origin of the feeling of loving and protecting children. The origin of that is actually God himself. And that mood within God is nourished by the nature of the devotion. So in the case of Narasimha and Prahlad, the nature of Prahlad's devotion sparked in Narasimhadev when you read the Leela. Of course, it's an eternal mood, but the mood of devotion of Prahlad Maharaj sparked in Narasimhadev a feeling that loving and protecting someone, nourishing and protecting someone is such an amazing feeling that even though the Lord had appeared in all the previous incarnations in a wondrous way, like the appearance of Varahadev, the appearance of Kurma, or the appearance of any other avatars prior to Narasimhadev, it all appeared in the feature of wonder by some amazing means, just like Narasimhadev appeared from the pillar when Hiranyakasipu struck it. But from that time on, because of the overwhelming feeling of the loving, protecting mood, Narasimhadev became the embodiment of the principle of parental affection, which is why Rupa Goswami has placed him as the archetype in the different deities that are predominating deities of different moods. He placed him as the predominating deity of Vatsalya Prem. From that time on, Narasimhadev never, not only Narasimhadev, but any incarnations coming forward did not use the method of wonder to make their appearance, but rather all the incarnations accepted a mother and father, just like from Vamandev to, of course, Lord Ram, even Parashuram, who's Shaktivesha avatar, of course, to Krishna and Balaram, right? And then, of course, there's Shri Sachinandan Gaurari, all accepted mothers and fathers, so they accepted parental affection. In particularly in the parental affection, the affection of the mother is particularly strong. So in Ram Leela, for instance, not only did Lord Ram accept one mother, but how many mothers did Ram accept? Anyone?
3.
3. Yes, because he considered Kausalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra like mother. So he tasted the affection of all 3 of them. And Krishna, how many mothers did he accept?
Infinite. He accepted a lot
Was
of
it
mothers.
2? Was it 2?
Actually, the first answer was more correct because there's an infinite number of elderly Brijavasi ladies. He partially accepted also Devaki as mother, but he fully accepted Yashoda as the embodiment of all motherhood. But he also reciprocated with the affection of the elderly Brijavasi ladies and accepted their pollen and potion as also features of motherhood. So remember, pollen and potion means protecting and nourishing. So how did the elderly Brijavasi ladies show pollen and potion to Krishna?
Chastisement.
Well, purple.
Okay, let's try.
Okay.
Haribol Prabhu. I think they were always engaged in offering him sweets and very nice dishes. And just the exchange of him being naughty and, you know, this Ross going back and forth that he did and no, he didn't. Yes, he did. And that whole piece.
Very good answer. Shyam Prabhu?
Haribolji Dandava Pranam.
Yes.
Yeah, when certain things would happen to Krishna also, they will do all kind of ritual stuff like you know, like maybe even I mean I can't remember the details of it, but they would do so many different things to protect him. I can't remember exactly what the things are, but of course I think yeah, that's as far as I remember that's part of it.
Yeah, that was actually a very big part of it because anytime any inauspiciousness would come, because there's 2 other features of Vatsalya Prem. So you have Palana and Posana, then you have Tandabartsana and Sanka Amangala. So Tandabartsana means to chastise, but chastisement is coming from love in order to nourish the child. So the elderly gopis used to continuously chastise Krishna for his naughtiness that Parvati brought up. So this was part of their motherly affection because Krishna never used to, in the beginning, steal in his own home. So in order to engage them in motherly affection, he would steal in the homes of all the other elderly Brijavasi ladies, and therefore they would chastise him. And they would bring their chastisement to the ears of Mother Yashoda and allow Mother Yashoda to drink the sweetness of their love for Krishna through their chastisement. And Yashoda's countering their chastisement. How could this be? My son would never do such a thing, was a sort of reciprocation with them because they became more determined to prove to Mother Yashoda that her son was not this ideal character and that they all needed to mutually get together and show more love and affection through those facilities, right? Like Tandabartsana means to chastise him, right? And Sanka Amangala means a kind of apprehension or fear that arises in the heart whenever your child is not present before you. Everybody who's been a parent knows this feeling. If you have a child, it doesn't matter how old they are, once they're out of your sight, you're always worried about them. Actually, when we moved to Florida, my daughter was still in DC. If the phone will ring after 10 o'clock at night, a little degree of panic arises because you're always wondering what kind of call is coming. So this feeling is called Sanka Amangala, and among the elderly Brijavasi ladies, this was a consistent feature. If Krishna would be missing for a little while, or if Krishna was playing hide and seek with his friends, and the friends couldn't find him, and they would begin to call out, hey Kanai, right, very loudly, and it would alert the cowherd men, then they would also become very nervous. Has anything happened? Has any new demon come? Or anything like this. So in this way, the mood of the Brijavasis the mood of the Brijabasis became very much filled with this mood of parental affection in those 4 categories, right? So again, the 4 categories to remember: Palana, protection; Poshana, nourishing; Tandavatsana, the loving chastisement; and Sanka Amangala, a constant apprehension for the welfare of Shri Krishna, right? So there are many wonderful pastimes where all of this was displayed. So of course, one pastime is of course the Kaliya Damana Lila, that every day Baladev, who also has some mood of parental affection towards Krishna because he's elder. So every day Balaram, of course, would monitor Krishna's activities. Even though he would join in all of the playing and the fun, he would also, along with some other elder boys, monitor Krishna's activities so that he would not come into any kind of difficulty. So one thing Krishna used to continuously do was try to go to this place called Kaliya Daha. Kaliya Daha is the lake where the Kaliya serpent was. So Krishna had an urge to go there. So, but every day, Baladev, if he would see Krishna going in that direction, say, "Oh, come back, stay here," and he would never let him go. So on one day, it was the Nakshatra birthday. Nakshatra birthday means when the constellation that appeared on your actual birthday appears at any time. Outside of that, it's called your Nakshatra birthday, and they celebrate that. So all the Brijabasis were holding a small birthday celebration, not the actual birthday, but the Nakshatra birthday of Lord Balaram. And therefore they kept him home that day. So Balaram, he kept thinking, oh, what will Krishna do? What will Krishna do? And as he was thinking about it, and Krishna and all the cowherd boys were leaving to take the cows out, he thought, oh my gosh, he may try to go to Kaliya Daha. So he called to Subal and he told Subal, come. And so Subal had to backtrack and come all the way back. And he whispered in his ear that you should not let Krishna go to Kaliya Daha. So of course, Subal, by the time he ran back to join the other cowherd boys, Krishna had already come up with the plan. Oh, today we should take our cows to this very new place, which we've not gone to. So they started herding the cows towards Kaliya Daha. So Krishna, of course, he got there, and upon getting there, the poisonous fumes from Kaliya made all the cowherd boys faint. And of course, this becomes the beginning of the pastime of Krishna chastising Kaliya. But another thing that takes place is that while all of the elder Brijabasis are performing the Nakshatra ceremony for Lord Balaram, immediately they all feel a sense of inauspiciousness. So this is a rising of the mood of Sanka Amangala. Sanka Amangala means, again, an apprehension that something is not right with my child, right? So when they all started to feel this, they got actual signs of inauspiciousness, like twitching on the wrong side of the body, seeing inauspicious omens. And at that time, they all decided, we have to go as a collective, right? So now all of the love and the praying of the Brijabasis consolidates because they're all there together celebrating the Nakshatra birthday of Balaram. So all of their love combines and they all say, we have to go and find Krishna. And Baladev is trying to check them by saying, no, everything is okay. Everything is all right. Krishna's with all the other cowherd boys, right? So everything is fine. Don't worry. He's going to be all right. But still, all the elderly Brijabasis, they have impulse that's beyond their own control because their love is so high. So they all leave. And as they're going towards Krishna, the pace of their steps begins to get faster and faster. Their hearts start to beat faster and faster. All these signs are coming as the upsurge of their Vatsalya praying reaches higher and higher stages. While they're walking, and this is an interesting thing, they begin to remember various pastimes of Krishna. Some begin to close their eyes and meditate how he stole butter from their houses. Some remember his face when he was caught and how he would smile and charm them, right? Some begin to remember how fast, even though his legs were so short, how fast he used to run and how much difficulty they had catching him. So while they were walking towards Kaliya Daha, all of these thoughts are going on and is stimulating their parental love in a higher and higher way. This is the nature of Vatsalya Prem. So when they finally arrive there, they find Krishna already in the coils of Kaliya. So at that time, the collective bhav of all of the Brijabasis becomes so strong that they all either become stunned or they faint. Because at a certain point in the emotional spectrum, your body can only take so much. So even in the spiritual bodies, the spiritual emotions provide sort of a kind of replica, so to speak, even though the material world is really a replica of the spiritual world, the original context is in the spiritual world, their bodies become overwhelmed by the emotions and carry out functions like we would have here. So they all fainted there. The only ones who did not faint was all of the young girls who saw all of these elderly Brijabasis, the whole village is going towards Kaliya Da. So they immediately ran from their homes and they began to follow. So when everyone fainted, they were the only ones who did not faint. Does anybody know why? All the elder Brijabasis fainted. The cowherd boys, of course, they had become overcome by the aroma. Only Madhu Mangal, Subhal, they were somewhat conscious, right? Anybody else remember why the young girls did not faint? Achyutananda?
They had their veils, they were wearing their masks. They had their veils over. But they wanted to see Krishna as a youth now for the first time.
Yes, that's the answer. So Jiva Goswami Pada said, as they were coming just into the budding nature of their youth, right? This is the first time that they're seeing Krishna as he's also budding and coming into his youthful form. So now not quite coming to youth yet, because that will happen actually around 6 years old. He starts coming into his youthful, and there's a whole other pastime when he's coming back from herding cows and they begin to exchange glances. But here it's just the beginning of the budding of their youth. So for the first time, they begin to see Krishna like this, and they're so overwhelmed by their attraction for Krishna that they cannot even blink their eyes, what to speak of any other bodily functions taking place. So Madhu Mangal, he informs Krishna about this, and Krishna then, in order to reciprocate, he breaks free from the coils of Kaliya, and this is when he starts his dancing on the heads of Kaliya. And in Garga Samhita, there's different descriptions. Of course, in Gopal Champu of Jiva Goswami, there's different descriptions. But while Krishna was dancing on the head of Kaliya, the jewels on the head of Kaliya, they were moving this way and that way. And they were reflecting the light that was coming from the sun. And while they were reflecting that light, it appeared that Krishna was like, it was like being in a disco or something. So they saw that all the lights were shining on Krishna and his own jewels were reflecting light as well. So for the young Brijabasis, ladies, the young gopis, this was the most fascinating scene. And therefore they describe Bharaharapi-dam Natuvara Vapu Kada. Natuvara means like the greatest of dancers. So their first impression of the beauty of Krishna was Bharaharapi-dam Natuvara Vapu, that they saw Krishna with his peacock feather and looking as the best, most attractive dancer. So from that time on, the seed of their own desire to dance with Krishna was planted. And therefore, this becomes the genesis of what will later become the Ras Leela. Over the course of some years, it will take place, but this is the genesis of the Ras Leela. All of the elder Brijabasis, as Krishna has become free now, and they're all consoling one another and coming back to consciousness. Some come to consciousness and faint again. And of course, others, they're coming to consciousness and they're giving assistance to others. So in this way, Krishna tasted the cumulative Vatsalya Prem of all of the elder Brijabasis. So he's showing what is the glory of this kind of unconditional love that happens in parental affection. Of course, the gopis' love for Krishna, when you look at it from a neutral point of a neutral angle of vision, is somewhat superior because their love is not based on any kind of relationship with Krishna. They're not married to Krishna. They are not in a familial relationship with Krishna. The entirety of their relationship with Krishna is simply based around their love for him. The elderly people of the village, right? Because in just like in African culture, any other culture of antiquity, normally if you were a child in any village, everybody in that in that village is your parent. You have your biological parents, but everybody's your parents, right? Even if people remember growing up back in the day, so to speak, in the neighborhood, right? Everybody on the block was your parents because anybody could tell your mother. In fact, anybody it used to be could pull you up on something. If you did something wrong, you could get chastised by some neighbor, right? Who was somebody else's mother. And all your friends' mothers could also chastise you, right? Even give you a spanking back in the day. That doesn't happen today, but it used to be like that. So imagine that the Brijabasis, all of the elder Brijabasis, their love for Krishna was so strong, right? That they all felt like one heart with Mother Yashoda. Does anybody know how all the elderly Brijabasis, how their hearts became so much connected with the heart of Mother Yashoda? Again, another wonderful pastime. I'm not telling the whole pastime here, but I'm just describing. How is it that all the elder Brijabasis, the ladies, how their hearts became one with Mother Yashoda's heart?
They saw her in Damodar Astakam and the Damodar Lila.
Yes, yes. So at the time that Mother Yashoda was chastising Krishna during the Damodar Bandhan Lila, at that time, of course, we know that when Mother Yashoda was trying to tie Krishna to the grinding water, she took the ribbons and strings from her hair. And first using those, she found that every time she tried to tie Krishna, it would come up 2 fingers too short. So then she had servants bring ropes from within the house in various places. Still, when she tied all those ropes together, they came up 2 fingers too short. As she was trying to bind Krishna, all of the other elderly gopis had gathered there in the courtyard of Mother Yashoda, because for years and years, not years and years, but for so long, they had been telling Mother Yashoda about Krishna's naughty antics. But now he had performed it for the first time within his own house. So now they were all there confirming, you see, Yashoda, we were trying to tell you this all along, but you would not listen, right? So, but they were feeling some mood of empathy with Mother Yashoda, because Mother Yashoda's determination was so strong. Krishna's determination not to be bound was so strong. His determination not to be bound was so strong that by his Yog Maya Shakti, he produced within himself a vision of the entire universe, right? So that Mother Yashoda, when she was trying to bind him, she also saw this, but she didn't become deterred. Also, Krishna, by manifesting an inconceivable, simultaneous universal form, and at the same time his baby form, because this is why the rope was 2 fingers too short. Krishna kept expanding. Every time she'd bring more ropes, Krishna would expand. And Krishna's ability to expand is unlimited. But one of the sort of morals of the whole pastime is that the love of the devotees is greater than Krishna's power and opulence. This is one of the morals of this whole story. So as the elderly Brijabasis were watching Mother Yashoda, their empathy then started to bring ropes from their own homes, from their own hair, everything else, and they tied them to the ropes of Mother Yashoda. So in this way, they tied their hearts and their Vatsalya Prem to the Vatsalya Prem of Mother Yashoda. So in this way, Krishna actually was not only expanding in order to show the greatness of the love of his devotees, but he was also expanding because he was tasting more and more. The more that they brought ropes, the more he was tasting this Vatsalya Prem. Every time any elderly gopi would bring more ropes, that would add to the nature of the collective Vatsalya Prem that was being tasted. And how is it being tasted? Because all 4 elements of Vatsalya Prem are present in that Leela. One is Palana, the desire to protect Krishna. What was the desire to protect Krishna? That now Mother Yashoda had confirmed, this boy has been stealing butter in the house of other people. I'll have to protect him from the ill repute of growing up to become a dacoit or a thief, right? Potion, what was the nourishment? That if I don't offer this Tanda Bhatsana, this kind of chastisement, I won't be offering poshana means nourishment to his kalyan. Kalyan, the word kalyan means the welfare of someone. There's one thing that's Krishna's happiness, but if you study the verse carefully, what is pure bhakti? It says, Anya abhilasita sunyam jnana karmadya navratam anukulyena Krishna anusilanam. So here anukulyena means anu kalyan, his kalyan. What is his welfare? You understand? Because Mother Yashoda is expressing love not for Krishna's just happiness, but what will be his welfare. Just like when Mother Yashoda, which started the whole Leela, when she was churning the yogurt or churning butter, Krishna at that time, he wanted to take her breast milk. But immediately when she saw that the milk was boiling over, she put Krishna down to go and attend to the milk. So our acharyas have analyzed, if Mother Yashoda was only concerned with Krishna's happiness, then she would never have broken Krishna's breastfeeding at that time. But because her love is deeper, she has love for Krishna's kalyan, for his welfare. She thought that by this milk, I will make ghee, yogurt, butter, sweet, so many things that will go into Krishna's nourishment and everything. So this is more important. You understand? So now her love collected with all the other love of all the other elder Brijabasis have become the rope that finally bound Krishna to the grinding mortar. You understand? So this is the pinnacle. Nrsimhadev is the archetype because he represents pollen and potion, right? But Mother Yashoda is the archetype. She's the highest degree of what is motherly affection. Understand?
Haribol, Prabhu.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the answer to your question would have been the Vimohan pastime when Lord Brahma took the cowherd boys
Mm-hmm.
and Krishna expanded himself, and so the mothers thought that their children, you know, they were actually Krishna. They couldn't explain what the different Shakti or energy was, but I thought at that point the Shimanti Yashoda and the other mothers would have come together in that same parental kind of feeling.
Actually, almost the opposite, because during that pastime, Krishna was reciprocating with their love individually.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, he performed a pastime in which he came as their own sons. So this was part of the bewilderment when you read commentaries of the acharyas, that Baladev even was bewildered. How is it that these elderly women have now more affection for their own sons? And how do the cows have more affection for their older calves than they do for their newborn calves? Because Krishna actually had appeared as all the calves and cow boys and individually reciprocated with them. But because the pinnacle of motherly affection resides in Yashoda, it's not until Damodar Bandhan Leela that they all come together with Krishna directly as the focus, not their own sons, they're thinking, but Krishna is the focus, and tying their own hearts to the heart of Mother Yashoda. Where else do we see that? That because there's the pinnacle of love in each category. So in the category of the gopis' love for Krishna, whose love is the highest among all the gopis?
Srimati Radhika.
Srimati Radharani.
Srimati Radhika, easy answer. So is there any pastime where all the gopis, they make their hearts one with Radhika?
Yes, the Rasa Leela after Krishna disappears.
Yes, during Gopi Geet.
Mm-hmm.
When they find Radhika, after Krishna has disappeared, to find Radhika, and Radhika and Krishna meet together, and they're going, Van Vihar means they're going from one forest to another. And then Krishna tells Radhika that we should continue to move. But Radhika in her heart is thinking of the welfare of all of her Sakhis, right? This is also called Adorja. Like the word Adorja, we normally refer to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, meaning magnificent. But actually, Madhurya and Ardorja are just like the yin and yang symbol. There's some Madhurya in Ardorja Lila, and there's some Ardorja in Madhurya Lila, right? The word Ardorja means magnificence, right? So how does this happen? Then I'll explain what happened with Radhika. So in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime, it is Ardorja Lila. It means it's very broad and very accommodating. But where is the Madhurya? Means the exclusivity in Mahaprabhu's Lila. Name some instances where there's exclusivity. Someone else. Someone need to give someone else a chance. Where will we find exclusivity in Mahaprabhu's Lila? Achyutananda?
And Imlitala.
In Imlital to some degree, but that time Mahaprabhu had gone to Vrindavan alone. So, but in actual Gaur Mandal. Someone else?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, where will we find the mood of Madhurya? Hear the word Madhurya, not meaning just sweetness, but exclusivity in Gaur Lila. Okay, so I'm telling. So two places primarily. One is in Srivas Angan, because remember in the original kirtans in Srivas Angan, could everybody come in? No, they were exclusive because they were meant to give reciprocation to all the devotees from previous incarnations, the ability to taste the intensity of the mood of Braj. So through the kirtan in Srivas Angan, these devotees were tasting that mood. Then again in the Gambhira with Roy Ramananda and Swarup Damodar, that was also exclusivity. So here you have, Jai Chaitanya Prabhu, there you have Madhurya in Ardorja. So the Srivasangan and also in the Gambhira, right? Then in Braj Lila, you have Madhurya, right? The meeting of Krishna with the gopis is an exclusive thing, right? But where will you find Ardorja? If Radha and Krishna will meet for their pastimes, at a certain point in the pastimes, two things will happen. One is that Radhika will think, oh, as I am tasting, all of my Sakhi should also taste like this. You understand? So therefore, she'll actually send Krishna from one kunj to another, to the kunj of Lalita, kunj of Vishaka, kunj of this one, kunj of that one. Also, the nature of prem itself, when it reaches a certain stage, it has a function. This function is called Yavat Astraya Vritti. It means the love exits the heart. It overflows, exits the wrong word, overflows the heart of one person and spills out and touches the heart of all of those who are associated with that person. So in Ujjwala Nilamani, this is called Janata Rit Valodanam. That prem spills out from the heart of Radhika and spills into the hearts of her Sakhis and Manjaris, and they're also tasting. This is called Ardorja also. Understand? So the pastime in which all the gopis' hearts become one with Radhika, as Manini said, is during the time of Radha and Krishna's disappearance, and they're going together. Now when Krishna tells Radhika we have to keep moving, Radhika thinks, in the mood of Ardorja, I want to share this now with all of my Sakhis, right? So she says, well, if you want me to go any further, you should carry me. So then Krishna said, okay. And he turned to allow Radhika to climb onto his back. But when Radhika started to reach out to touch him, shyness overwhelmed her and she closed her eyes. And as she closed her eyes, she didn't feel Krishna's body. And at that time, her tactile sense and her sense of sight attacked her and created a mood of separation. So this is a very high topic because it's called Prem Vaichitya. It means even though Radhika's present with Krishna, she experiences separation. So this happened at that time. Krishna was so amazed by this mood of Prem Vaichitya that he hid in the bushes to observe it. At that time, Radhika, she fainted and then laid out on the ground and she was reciting, Hey Nataramana Presta Kwasi Kwasi Mahabuja. She's reciting one shlok like this. At that time, all of her gopi friends and even the other gopis, they came and they found Radhika in that condition. When they saw Radhika in that condition, it didn't matter whether they belonged to Chandravali's group, whether they were in the neutral group, whether they were in a friendly group, or whether they were in Radhika's own group. All of their hearts immediately became one with Radhika's heart in the depth of her separation. When they all came together in that mood, they sang what is called the Gopi Geet, starting Jayati Deadikam, Janmana Braja, and ending Yate Sujata Charanam Burunam Staneshu. So they sing a whole series of verses, beginning with the one I recited first, ending with the one I recited last. When they recite the last verse, Yate Sujata Charanam Burunam Staneshu, at that time, Krishna from his hiding place became overwhelmed by, again, the collective love that was now personified in Radhika, because all these gopis' hearts now be one with Radhika. And when they recite this verse, Krishna can no longer hide himself. Just like when Radhika came before Krishna, when he manifested 4 arms at Paitagan, when he was trying to hide himself. When Radhika came before him, his 2 arms went in because he could not keep his 4 arms in front of Radhika. In the same way, though he was hiding in the bushes, as soon as he heard this verse, the verse was the cumulative of all of the praying through all of the verses of all of the gopis. And it accumulated in this verse, which exceeded the pinnacle of what is called love, right? Because the nature of love is that it is meant to create happiness in the object of love. But this verse says, listen, our love for you is so strong that we have come to love you, to give you pleasure, but we fear that our trying to give you pleasure is causing you pain. So this is kind of almost like a reversal, right? Where they become deeply absorbed in the fact, because one of the parts of the verse says, Kupadi bir, Pramatidi, Bhavama Yusamnaha. We fear that now that you're hiding from place to place, your very soft feet, which we originally wanted to place on our hearts, is now being cut and hurt by very sharp stones. So we are giving you, Bhavam Ayusamnaha, we are giving you our life, right? And in exchange for our life, we want that not even a little bit of pain should come on the softness of your lotus feet. So Krishna was overwhelmed by this. So Tasamavya Bacha Chari Smayamanam Amukam Bojam Pitam Bara Dara Swagri Sakshat Manmat Manmat. At that time, by force, Krishna was forced from his hiding place and appeared before the gopis. And the significance of saying Sakshat Manmat Manmat was that all of this cumulative love that the gopis had now made Krishna appear in the most beautiful form. You understand? Krishna's beauty is an eternal reality. But Krishna's beauty almost morphs in relation to the prema or love shown by the devotee. So here the highest manifestation of love was being shown, so the highest form of beauty was being shown by Krishna. Therefore, when that kind of beauty was shown by Krishna, it appeared to be directly like Cupid himself for the gopis. Sakshat, Manmat, Manmat. And it's from this point now, when the love has reached the highest point, Krishna's beauty, which is the inspiration of their love and affection, reaches the highest point, that they begin the Rasa Leela at Vamsivat. You understand? So this is the nature of love and affection. And the, again, origin of all fraternal love, especially motherly affection, comes in the spiritual paradigm. We have some reflection of it in the material world, because in the material world, the Shastra says, Kaitavam rahitam prema, na prema manushaloke. That in the material world, among human conditioned beings, any love that's here has some element of kaitava. Kaitava means cheating. So it may not be a gross kind of cheating, but it is a cheating in the sense that it is not unconditional. Because conditioned beings can't have unconditional love. So even where we may find the apparent most pristine example of love, you can believe that there is a condition under which that love can be broken. Unlike spiritual love, which is defined, Savata Dongsa Rahitam Yarapi Dongsa Karane, that there is nothing that can break that love. That's why it's a fallacy to suggest that people can fall from the spiritual world, because those in the spiritual world, they have love for Krishna, and that love cannot be broken by anything. Even if a cause arises for the love to be broken, Yad Bhava Bandhana Yuno Prema Parikirtita. The very definition of prema is that the love becomes stronger when there's a cause for it to break, right? And we don't have that experience in the material world. There is a limit to what we could tolerate in paternal love, in conjugal love, in fraternal love, right? There are limits, right?
Haribo,
Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Dhanyavad.
Dhanyavad for that. Prabhu, my question is when you're reading and sharing this wonderful experience, when you're absorbing all of this realization, what does it do to you? How does it make you feel? How are you able to share without extreme emotion?
Well, one thing is that we are doing things according to our service to Sri Guru. So when we're serving Sri Guru, there's an ulas, means there's a exaltation in the heart. But, you know, depending on the devotee, my quality is not so high that it can directly create ecstatic moods and so forth. But there's a satisfaction, there's a genuine happiness that comes in the service to our Guru Parampara and our Guru Parapadma, means our Gurudev, right?
Right.
And this is where our mood should be for right now. Right now, we should be more concentrated. I am so indebted to what my Gurudev is given, that Harikatha, which he's given, by sharing that, I'm attempting to do some service to his lotus feet, not in pursuit of repaying the debt, because the debt is, you can't repay it, but only in love, because the first kind of exchange of unconditional love comes between guru and disciple. This is the only first experience of love we really have in this world. No husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, father, child, nobody can show unconditional love. Among devotees, the quality that is the, it's called lakshan. Lakshan means like a quality. That quality is there because Krishna is the center. Right? So Goswami, he said, Tadati Pratagrinati Gyamakati Prichiti Bhukte Bojayate Chaiva Sad Vidam Priti Lakshanam. The exchange between devotees, like giving gifts, sharing gifts, revealing confidences, sharing and giving prasad, right? There's deep meanings to this verse as well, but that it all has Priti Lakshan. It has the quality of Priti because Krishna is the center of it. Wherever self-interest is prominent, that much distance love is away. You understand? In other words, love and self-interest can't occupy the same space.
Yes.
That's why in the material world, when people say they're falling in love with each other, etc., they're falling in mutual self-interest. And where the self-interest diverges, that's the point at which the quote so-called love has revealed itself as kaitava prem, or cheating love. You understand?
Hari Bol, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a very important point. And actually, devotees, I'll come Yashoda, but people, devotees should memorize this. That actually, if you speak to people, people are not falling in love. They're falling in mutual self-interest. Some people are actually falling in exploitation. So, I mean, there's all kinds of levels of it. But you cannot fall in love because the elements of what makes love are really not present in the conditioned jiva. According to how much you become unconditioned, you can express a shadow of unconditional love. And your exchange with devotees again, by Rupa Goswami's definition, has the lakshan, the quality of love, because Krishna is the center. That's why in Grihastha life, there is some genuine affection between husband and wife, etc., because Krishna is the center. Between friends in Krishna consciousness, because Krishna is the center, then friendship has a quality of love. But if Krishna is removed from the center, then even if somebody has the external appearance of Grihastha life or Bhakti, Maitri means Bhakti friendship or whatever, all the elements of conditional life will pop into it. And that's why you see sometimes devotees are very disappointed. Oh, I thought the devotee was very nice, but they turned out to be very deep.
Hari Bol, Mukunda, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna.
All right, Yashoda.
I believe you just answered it. My question was about like the Sakis and devotees. How would you refer to their love for one another? And you said it's sort of like a part of it, right?
Yeah, well, Rupa Goswami, he says this is called Priti Lakshan, because the essential dealings between devotees is centered around Krishna. And therefore the exchanges are not based in self-interest, right? They're things that are acquired from their relationships are all due to the influence of Krishna's love for them. You understand? In other words, when devotees are mutually talking about Hari Katha, or when devotees are mutually serving together, or when devotees are mutually doing some service to Gurudev, etc., whatever they receive in reciprocation from that is coming from the Swarup Shakti. So it is some element of the, not quite the boss yet even, but the influence, prabhav. Influence means prabhav of Swarup Shakti. And therefore it has some genuineness to it. Absent of the presence of God or Krishna, then there's no real sense of love. Because think about it, I mentioned this before, that Krishna as a super soul has been with the jiva throughout their entire sojourn. And that's been in dogs' bodies, hogs' bodies, roaches' body, all kinds of, Krishna's still been there and loving you the same. And the thing is, we never even turned around once to say thank you, hello, how are you? Not that we came into spiritual consciousness. That's unconditional love. And then when Guru appears, because now when you have an inkling that I do want to reciprocate that love with the super soul, right? Even you're not conscious of the super soul yet, but you start to, who am I? Why am I here? There must be something else. The super soul immediately takes that as a chance to give you facility to reciprocate and sends Guru, who's the external representation of the super soul. And now for the first time, you experience somebody who loves you unconditionally, because they have no conditions. Okay, any other questions or comments? I've got a lot on the plate today. Anybody want to? Haribol, Anjali, Didi?
Hare Krishna. So you just mentioned about the relationship that is had only truthfully with Krishna out of gratitude, out of love. But there's so many people in this day that they don't even see God having any type of personality, period. They see that the topmost pinnacle is Brahmajyoti, Nirvana. That's it. That's all that there is to it. How do we help people that have been so hurt this lifetime that they just want to call it quits, don't even want to say thank you to anyone. They just want that dirt nap. Looking forward to dirt nap. And boy, it is.
To carry the quality of personal reciprocation. So they look for voidism or they merge in the Brahmajyoti. Now the Brahmajyoti is a unique situation and it would take some time to describe that phenomenon, right? But you also have people who don't really have the actual spiritual substantive qualities to actually reach the stage of beyond material existence. So their voidism and impersonalism is a quality of self-interest in the fact that they have been hurt, they have been mistreated, they have been disappointed. So now in self-interest, they're trying to push those things away, not out of any realization of search for divinity, but just out of the fact that the mental and intellectual facilities which sponsor things in our chitta, right? Because what happens is that your intelligence digs into the data bank of your consciousness and it pulls things up, right? And then the mind is like a filter that accepts it or rejects it. So what's happening is that the intelligence is pulling up data. I've been through 3 relationships and they all ended in heartbreak. So the next person that walks along talking about, hi, how are you? You don't want to hear it, right? Because I've been down this track already. I don't even want to hear it, right? Right. So rather, when the person says, hi, how are you? Your response is, yeah, how are you? Have a good day, right? And so, and you see, because the intelligence has pulled up the database of the last 3-4 times that somebody started off like that, it ended up with doing something that was not tenable to keep a relationship going, right? Now, when you really look at it, I had so much self-interest invested in becoming happy by what I perceived as a relationship that now, when that didn't pan out, my next level of self-interest is in no relationship. But it's not tenable because we have an eternal relationship with God. The substratum of that reality is going to come back up and we're going to start seeking relationship again. Except now we're going to be carrying baggage of the previous bad ones, which still have not been distilled yet. What was the problem? We're going to carry that into future relationships. And again, self-interest become prominent, and not us, but whoever we're relating with as well, carrying the same thing. And it's just going to be a cyclic thing that goes on until there's this epiphany of me and my relationship with God. In any religious dynamic, my relationship with God, once that is solid, there is not a dependence of my fulfillment coming from relationship with another person in this world. So whomever I'm related to in this world is a complement to my relationship with God. They're not a necessity in my fulfillment. I'm not experiencing a void. Therefore, I have no expectations from that person beyond the ability to actually show them the nature of however much I've digested unconditional love from my guru and from God. Now, what happens sometimes with devotees is that because we're not quite pure yet, we start kind of making a smoothie out of the spiritual thing and the material thing. I'm deep down in the spiritual thing, right? But then you meet somebody and you think, since I'm deep in the spiritual thing, I will share that with them, bring them to where I am, and everything is going to be fine, right? But then you find out that I'm not God and I don't control everything. So I cannot force that person to come into a certain dynamic. So now I'm back on the platform of expectation, having a void, because the void was I expected to instill all this God stuff in this person, and it didn't happen really that way, or the way I wanted it to. So I'm back to disappointment on the material level. Understand? So we have to stay fixed in the idea of my relationship with God. And then anybody who comes into our life space, they can share that. And to the degree they can't share that, it's okay. Now, to the degree they can't share that and it's not nourishing to my spiritual growth, we can't be in any kind of continuum as a relationship. We can be Dandavat at a distance, it's called. Right? All right.
Woo.
Any
Can
other
I get a witness? That was
Yeah.
so timely, Makunda. Haribo.
Yes,
I appreciate that.
everybody here can witness to that because everybody's been
Can we
through
get
that.
a witness? Wow.
Everyone's experiencing it.
Haribo.
Hey, Boomy, what'd you say?
Everyone's experiencing it.
Yes. Yeah.
Preach,
Yeah.
Makunda, preach.
Oh boy. Anyway, this is the real truth about love and about parental affection and the nature of affection, period. And we're so fortunate because we're on a path that for the first time, maybe not first time because we've had previous lives, obviously, in unfolding, but that we're coming closer to the genuine article of love. And you'll find the closer you get to that, the more you're able to have substantive relationships in this world. Because you don't have any void. You're not looking for something in people and expecting to get something that they don't have. You're getting everything you need from God. And that person's sharing it with you. So that's a joyous thing. Right?
That's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to understand our own limitations because we have expectations, like in Gita, while contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment. From attachment, lust arises. When lust can't be satisfied, anger develops. Then comes bewilderment of memory, loss of intelligence, and one falls down into the material pool because of our expectations of some type of happiness, or in other words, mixing the oil in the water, especially when we come to a spiritual paradigm. Oh, I can mix it together, get my cake. In other words, I'll have my cake and eat it too, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work. Doesn't work. That's been
Yeah,
my
I mean,
experience.
you actually have to apply and practice spiritual life. So it cannot be a theory. Like I'm giving an example. I know somebody who theoretically was very spiritual, but they depended on happiness as Bhumi Pati is talking about, as a conflation between their theoretical spirituality and their material dealings. So what they would do is essentially impose their spiritual theory onto whoever they were dealing with, right? So they'd always want everybody around to be holistic and whole and conscious and this and that, but they're looking for that dynamic as a way to enjoy themselves with others in a material sense with just spiritual theory. And then this was the amazing thing. The person went through a breakup. And I remember my wife sitting with the person directly and telling them, but it's hard for me to fathom that you speaking so much about spirituality, but if divinity has revealed to you this person is not for you, how you would be so disturbed and distressed. Think about it. If you had so much depth in divinity and God being with me and I'm being enlightened and so forth. Well, when that enlightenment told you this person is not for you, how could you be that distressed? You would think, oh, thanks to divinity, I now have realization that this was not the person for me. But rather than that, you're still in a mode of like being after that person and all these kind of things. It was a very interesting exercise. And I remember I was with my wife. We were, I don't want to say where because that made me feel talking what we're talking about everything. But my wife asking that question person, and it struck me as well. Like, wow, yeah, that's a fact. If the whole spiritual thing that you were dealing with and that you were trying to impose really on that person, right? And then that person just said, listen, I'm not happy, and that person wanted to move on. If your love was really that deep, wouldn't you have said, okay, well, if that would make you happier to move on, right? It also means you're not for me per se. So that would give realization to me that this is not meant to be. You understand? But what it really revealed was that you really had all the essential material attachments and you were covering that over with spirituality. And it wasn't real spirituality, it was just spiritual theory. It wasn't really spirituality. That's why when I talked about spiritual bypassing, I mentioned you can't actually spiritually bypass because real spiritual substance is real. You can theoretically spiritually bypass. That means you don't have real spirituality. What you're doing is using the sort of artificial theoretical spirituality you have, and you're taking shelter of that, but it's not real for you.
Quasi-spiritual life.
I want to ask another question since you just brought up something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a difference between spiritual theory and spiritual application.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very human that in any breakup, that there's mourning, grief, and loss. Even when it is put on the idea of, you know, it is not a right fit, the person wants to leave, the other person is happy. There is even letting go. It is absolutely human to grieve. So in the spiritual, you know, if we're spiritual, that we're always in self-interest. That's what we are as soul with lowercase s. How do we transform this grief, this mourning, this loss of another connection with another human being back into our spiritual practice?
See, one of the things, and this is really important, the spiritual practice has to be there first. In other words, the reality, in other words, the spiritual practice has given rise to a spiritual reality, right? That spiritual reality is what it is. It's not like, and this is what I'm talking about, there's not a separation between sort of a theoretical spirituality and then my realness is my humanness. So then I'll go through like human experiences, then I'll jump back and look at the spiritual, I'll open up my spiritual theory. Okay, how can I get up in here now? Because I need you now. That spiritual reality is day to day, that's real. You understand? Like when my mother and father, both times when they passed away, there should be a natural and organic separation and so forth and so on. When I did not feel that deep of a disturbance, the first time was with my mom, and I thought, wow, why am I, you know, I'm not like I should be, you know, like really. And I realized that what we've been practicing all this time was factually there. We're not the body. My mother's given up that body. She's actually the soul. That was real. It wasn't like I had that as a backdrop theory. And then at the time, I was still in all this humanness. And then, you know, when it started hitting me, I started looking for it as a remedy. It was real because I was day to day doing bhajan life, etc. So when that happened, that was already a reality. When I many people know that I was married previously. And I remember, and I'm telling this about myself personally because I think it's very important. In the time when that marriage was coming to an end, there wasn't any like very bad things or anything. It was just maybe an outgrowing or whatever it was. But I remember some people who were very vested in like counseling and all these kind of things. So they came and said, Prabhu, do you need to sit down and talk about it? I was like, no, I'm okay. No, Prabhu, you know, it's probably deep seated and you have to get in there. And frankly speaking, I'm just frankly honest. I was like, no, I mean, I understand. This person wanted genuinely to do something else or whatever. And that was, you know, a genuine consider, not like, you know, it's not like this has been my whole life. I mean, I had the heartbreak with the tree boxing and the whole 9 yards as a teenager. So it's not like, you know, I don't know the difference. So here, clearly, you know, having been now somewhat enveloped in spiritual life, it was clear to me that that deep enough and spiritually armored enough to interact with people and organically allow some overflow from your reality to touch them. Because it's not so much about preaching to people what you say, it's more about what will substantively come from their experience of being with you. Because if they're with you more than a day or two, they'll start to see your life. You understand? And so it's more than just what you say, it's what you are in reality. You understand? So if that's there, substantively, that experience will come across to someone else, right? And then the other thing is, we are not also God, so we're not like the savior of everybody. We're like servants. So we're trying to do our service. And if we have some well-wishing towards someone, then Guru and Krishna will help that person. But I have to believe and know that I don't really have capacity to help necessarily everybody, but God does, Krishna does. So as we are doing our own growth, Krishna will also pick up, oh, that person's associated with you, this one's associated with you. Krishna will also give blessings in that way. And then Krishna will help them, you know? And one last thing is that the highest manifestation of these things is when you can really have the well-wishing of someone, even when that person is not for you. In talking about in terms of conjugal relationships. If that person is not for you and you can genuinely wish for their best outcome in bhakti and everything else, that's the sign. If you maintain an animosity, well, the person wasn't for me and they blew it, they missed out. And because they missed out, they can go and, you know, kick rocks. You can't be
That's
like
that false ego manifesting.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have to think, listen, if I loved you, quote, right, 3 weeks ago, and then in this next week here, it didn't work out and we're breaking up, it can't certainly revert to I hate you. Because what that proves is that the entire process was all self-interest, and now self-interest has come out to claim its feelings, right? I hate you. Because I loved you 2 weeks ago and then I hate you. That you understand? That's not, if by the definition of love, that's not possible for one, right? So what has to be there, if you are genuinely have some love and affection towards Guru and towards the spiritual process, if it turns out that that person you were with did cheat, that person moved on, whatever the case might be, right? I wish you the best in spiritual life, because ultimately that is what it is. I wish you would have realization in spiritual life, that you will grow, and I have to go on in my own life. Now, proportionate, now I'm not being unrealistic, proportionate to how we were attached in self-interest to that person, that's how much there's going to be some pain and suffering that will, as we mentally absorb ourselves, I was with this person, I was in love, we were a couple. The more we bought into that, right, the more when you pull the band, like if you're a very hairy person and somebody puts a Band-Aid on, well, the more hair you have, the more it's a little painful when the Band-Aid comes off, right? So the more you've invested in the idea, I love you too. And then when they find the person with somebody else, I hate you. And right? The more all of that's there, the more it's going to be painful. So the more you are already inwardly absorbed in, oh, I am the Das or Dasi of Krishna. My entire life is dedicated to understanding love of God. Everything else I'm doing is also related to that. I have a job, I work, I have family, I have friends, all that's related. This particular person somehow did not align with where I am right now, karmically, whatever the case might be. I wish them the best in bhakti, but my life hasn't changed. Krishna's still God. I'm still trying to go back to Godhead. None of that changed.
You're
When that
forever
person
well
left-
wisher.
Yeah, when that person left, it didn't change anything about those facts. In other words, Krishna didn't say, well, I'm going with them, I'm not going to be with you. So nothing changed about my relationship with Krishna.
Your analogies are the bomb. I love your analogies.
They are. That's perfect, Prabhu. That makes you understand and see what the goal is for the devotee, you know, that's understanding where you are in your Krishna consciousness, actually, you know, and that's a wonderful place to be.
All right, so if this
Haribol.
should happen in the future, one last thing, if this happens in the future, you'll put on a kirtan instead of a Sade record, right?
Mukunda, Mukunda, I would,
Try to bring fun.
a small
Haribol.
suggestion,
Bhumi, what'd you say?
a small suggestion,
That's
That's
real.
not to make it
That's-
mundane, but
Mhm.
there's so many answers in the song, What a Fool Believes. Look at the lyrics, What a Fool Believes. And you'll understand what I'm saying.
Jai
Because
Prabhu.
material world, this is the matter of relationships in the material world. What a fool believes.
Mm.
What a
Haribol, Prabhu.
Haribol.
Haribol. So I just wanted to also bring in the point that the loving relationship that you were speaking about, the one-on-one intimate relationship. What I heard from Sri Panishad was more inclusive of loving relationships with, you know, family members, extended family and close friends. And what should the response be that we are not completely insensitive or just impersonal, giving consideration for our spiritual practices and all that we think we know. And so I just wanted to comment on the fact that as spiritual entities or as individuals aspiring to grow in our bhakti and our practices, that we do have a responsibility to our family and extended family members to not only be an example, but to help where we can. So if that help is just to speak something that may be inspiring or to do some action that may be of assistance, no harm. But I think the bottom line is to remember that our priority has to be in our spiritual practice. And that anything or anyone that interferes or compromises the integrity of that service that we're engaged in, then we have to really, you know, look at that closely to determine how we may have to narrow that exchange and do what's best for us as an individual. Jai Prabhu, Haribol.
So one last thing also here is that I want to ask some of the senior devotees who are here and just other devotees who want to volunteer should reach out to Parvati Didi to sometimes want to also host a class, whether I'm here or not. I mean, even while I'm here, some who want to facilitate the class that week, I also have a chance to hear, but then also sometimes it gives me an opportunity to do some Harikatha at our temple, because our temples, after the pandemic, everything is trying to build back up. And so they've asked that sometime I could do Harikatha there for Sunday program, right? So, but I'm not changing from here, right? Only sometimes I'm doing there. So if devotees will reach out to Parvati so she can kind of schedule some devotees, because she's working the board and doing many things same time. So if devotees will reach out and say, okay, I'll take a week and I'll do this topic and so forth, at least she has people lined up like that.
Well, Mukunda, that's the
Yes.
thing. I mentioned that to you yesterday. Next weekend on Sunday is Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day for devotees on the East Coast. Most of the other places I looked, it's on Saturday, like in Chicago and Houston, California and Denver. Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day is next Saturday. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of the calendar.
Okay. All righty, Dandavats. Hey, Yugal, you want to do a little bit of kirtan? Just a little bit. Just Sri Krishna Chaitanya's Hare Krishna.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Right. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna.
Happy born and happy Mother's
Whoa. Wow.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy born.
Happy Mother's Day. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dhanavad. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Jugo. Thank you, Chandrika Kijai.
Jai Hari Go.
Wow. Beautiful.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Jugo. Thank you, Virginia Nandan Ganga Kijai.
Jai Hari Go.
Hari
Ki Jai.
Ishapanashad Kijai.
Jai Hari Go Madhupapati.
Jai Prabhu. Bhumipati Prabhu Kijai. Chutanandana Kijai. Manini Radha Kijai. Simon Sundar. Jai Mukunda Prabhu, of course, Kijai.